Hello and welcome to a new episode of the Cradle News Roundup, your one-stop shop for all news West Asia. My name is Esteban Carrillo. I am the head of news for the Cradle. As usual, I am joined by my colleagues, content creator and social media manager for the Cradle, Sima Itaim, and writer and content creator for the Cradle, Karim Shami. And before we start, I just want to remind you to like, to share, to subscribe to our channel, and to check out our Patreon, where you can support the Cradle and the work that we do. Today we're going to start discussing what's been happening in the north of Gaza, where the situation just continues to go from bad to worse to beyond anything we could have imagined. Although the atrocities we have seen for the past year, I guess that they have prepared us for almost anything. At this point, we're talking about 640 Palestinians killed over the past 17 days. Now, worth noting, that number is just the bodies that have been able to be recovered by rescue workers, who talk about many more lying under the rubble, many more lining the streets of Jabalia camp in the north, non-stop attacks against UN schools, against the shelters. The most horrific images coming out, hospitals as well. Over the past day, Israeli troops lay siege to the Indonesian hospital. We've seen images of detained Palestinians being marched out to be taken somewhere. We can pretty much assume what their fate is going to be. They're often divided into men and women groups. So the north of Gaza, I've spoken about it before as a kind of the Zionist final solution, really, right? This is what we're seeing: the ethnic cleansing, the destruction, the extermination, the annihilation of the civilian population under the so-called general's plan, which calls for this kind of siege. So, I don't have much more to say about it, so I'll just open the floor to you guys.
I mean, the situation in northern Gaza is indescribable at this point. As you mentioned, there have been at least, from what has been registered or known, 640 martyrs in 17 days. Northern Gaza has been besieged completely for 17 days. That includes Jabalia, Beit Hanun, and Beit Lahia. And this is not a military operation with military objectives. This is, as you said, the starvation and extermination plan to empty out northern Gaza and turn it into a military zone, supposedly to put pressure on the resistance. But from what it's looking like, it's to completely erase the area and build Jewish settlements there. Now, no aid has entered for the past 17 days. There are only two semi-functional hospitals in northern Gaza, which are the Indonesian hospital and the Al-Auda hospital. They are both besieged and attacked. Shelling and bombing and sniping is nonstop. Basically, the health ministry referred to it as a circle of death, because the occupation army is forcing residents to flee under bombardment or face killing, basically. So this is beyond genocide at this point, regardless of what anyone says. And it's in full view of the world, who is sitting by and watching. This is siege and starvation and displacement, the total destruction of buildings and aerial bombardment. And this is, of course, targeting health centers and health workers, as we have seen over the past year. There are families trapped in their houses making appeals, buildings being bombed and collapsing over their heads. People are being forced out by gunpoint. They're terrorizing them to leave. And meanwhile, the Israeli army is actually lying and claiming that it is allowing them to flee safely. And the Arabic spokesman of the military, Avichai Atai, even claimed that they are now fleeing because Yahya Sinwar is no longer alive, to break this morale. And the reality is that they've been refusing to leave, but now the majority of those who are leaving are basically being forced out at gunpoint or under bombardment. They are being forced to leave, and they have remained, they have refused actually up until this point to leave, because they know what this plan entails. Now with them leaving, this isn't because they want to leave. This is because they are literally being terrorized to leave. Like, people are coming into people's houses and kicking them out. So the situation really is, and then I was talking about the settlements. We at the Cradle reported this a couple of days ago, that the Likud party, which is Netanyahu's party, has issued invitations to an event near the Gaza border titled Preparing to Settle in Gaza, which is scheduled to take place in a few days. Now, people may have thought before that Netanyahu did not want to build settlements in Gaza because he didn't say it with his own tongue, and it was only his his other ministers like Smotrich and Ben-Gvir, who people maybe thought were fringe elements. No, this is the goal, and it's clear. If you also look at the border with Egypt, in the Philadelphia corridor, they have paved a new road with asphalt. There are stop signs and slow down signs. There are signs in Hebrew. We're at a point where what we were saying months back, that they will refuse to withdraw. And again, this is still Hamas's condition for a deal. They will not withdraw because they have a plan that they are moving with. And it is indescribable what is happening. Northern Gaza is being erased. At the same time, battles are ongoing. The resistance is still fighting, the Qassam and other factions. And actually, yesterday we had this commander. He's the commander of the, I think, 401st Armored Brigade. He's the highest-ranking commander that was killed since the start of the war in Jabalia by Qassam brigades. His name is Ahsan Daqsa. He's actually a Druze Israeli commander. So he was, an explosive device struck him as he was leaving his tank, apparently. He was he was brigade commander 4 months ago. He was basically leading the battle in Jabalia. So you have this annihilation taking place. And meanwhile, you have still operations against the Israeli military. But you see this guy, you could constitute this as an assassination because he was really a high-ranking official. And all this is taking place, still fighting under these conditions. Where it will go from here, we don't know. But many people are saying they will stay and they will build settlements. And this is not about the resistance. And this is not about bringing back the hostages or the captives. They call them hostages, as people, have been saying for a while now.
Yeah, as you're saying, Sima, so these battles are ongoing. We're seeing that, Hamas, just a few days ago, they lost their leader fighting on the ground, fighting the invading troops in the south of Gaza, because he was killed in Rafah. So we're seeing these battles keep going, and I think there's something, you gave a very thorough coverage of what's happening, but I think something that is very important to highlight is also what has been the response, or really lack thereof, from the West. And I want to point to two particular things that are fall across the same line, and that is Matthew Miller, the U.S. State Department spokesman, a couple of days ago, telling the press that Israel has a right to target civilians in the north of Gaza. Wow. And this is exactly the same thing that Annalena Baerbock, the German foreign minister, said as well. She said, civilians at some point, they stop being civilians. I forget the exact quote. It says, Israel has a right to target them because Israel has a right to defend itself, because that's the narrative, that's the rhetoric that has survived for a year now. It's, this is self-defense. When we see children, Gaza at this point has the largest number of child amputees in the world. That's self-defense. When you see the bodies being crushed up by bulldozers, or even, Palestinian prisoners who are still alive, that's self-defense. And when you're seeing, them getting marched out of a hospital at gunpoint or out of their homes, or when humanitarian aid is not allowed to enter the north of Gaza, that's self-defense. Everything that is every horrific thing that we have seen over the past year is just framed under this ridiculous idea that the army that is committing a genocide, that is responsible for a new Holocaust, is somehow still the victim, is somehow still going after their attackers, right? Because this is the level that the Palestinians have been dehumanized to. Elections in the U.S. are about 2 weeks from the day we are recording this. And it seems like the topic has completely fallen by the wayside in a way, right? At one point, we thought, this is going to be a driving force for the U.S. election. But at least in the larger terms, now you have State Department officials saying Israel has a right to kill civilians. And now to go back to what you were saying about this high-ranking commander who was killed in Gaza, a very interesting article that came out over the past couple of days from Aha Makom, that talks about a silent crisis, as they describe it, that is sweeping, I guess, through the Israeli army, that essentially you have a growing number of reservist troops in particular who are refusing to return to Gaza. They say everyone who is not dead or injured is mentally damaged. We know that the Israeli army is facing has been facing a bit of a suicide crisis over the past year. And a lot of what this article goes over is it kind of infers that is because of the atrocities, right? At some point, they kind of try to make it seem like they have seen such horrible things happen inside Gaza that they are just damaged and don't want to come back. But it seems that actually more of it has to do with that they have to go back to the same places over and over. They talk about we return to Jabalia, to Zaytun, to Shajaya. We have already cleared these places to Khan Yunis. We have already gone into Khan Yunis like 3-4 times. We're supposed to have cleared it. They let us go back to our homes or whatever, the reservist force, and then they ask us to come back to the same place to do the same thing we already did. So again, this is something we've talked about almost since the start, since we started this podcast, that Israel had an uphill battle against the Palestinian resistance. And over the past several months, we've talked about how they have failed at achieving any of their military goals inside Gaza.
Yeah.
And now with this whole idea of like resettling Gaza and, come and buy the beachfront property that Jared Kushner is so desperate to start selling, what do they think that they have achieved, and what do they think that they are going to achieve by just propagating this extermination that we're seeing?
Well, I mean, if they want to take the land, then that's what they're going to do, right? I mean, they failed at their military, at the war objectives that they have stated, and they have, as you mentioned, so far failed to eradicate Hamas. But as for the other goals, such as returning the captives, I don't think that this is of any importance to them. So if they want to annex the land, I'm not being negative here. I'm just being totally realistic. I don't see who will stop them from doing that. It doesn't mean they've achieved what they stated they wanted to achieve, but yeah.
Yeah, and it is about the land in the end, right? Like this is why they keep bringing these troops back. This is why they're kind of running through their forces. And I guess in a way, because there's also a report in Israeli media that came out today that talks about how their tanks and their armored vehicles are being damaged so often that they are now needing to hire private companies to fix them, right? Like internally, the Israeli army cannot handle the amount of tanks and armored vehicles that are being sent back to them for repairs because of Hamas attacks, because of Hezbollah attacks. So, we've talked a lot about the internal Israeli pressure of the discontent with the government, of like the captives. Although I agree with you that at this point the captives have really just become another topic that nobody seems to care about beside the families, and or the billions are being spent, or like their economy is being hurt because the reservist force is at the end the economic power, not the power, the worker base for Israel. But after a year, I agree with you. Like it seems impossible that there's any force that can actually stop them from achieving this goal, which is to take the land. What do you think, Karim? Do you think this what's happening with the Israeli army internally? Do you think it's something that can change, that can shift the outcome of what we're witnessing?
We are witnessing like systematic destruction in Gaza, and maybe soon in West Bank, and it started in Lebanon. And I don't see like how this will stop. First, because Israel is the spoiled child of the West. It was created by Britain, and then it was like backed by France. And when the United States became the most powerful, they shifted to the United States. And I think even if they don't have tanks, all the West will come to fight and to hate Israel because it's their creation and they control the region from this point. And they are, as I said, the spoiled child. Usually the spoiled child who wears what his father or his parents did in their early lives. So that's what I see, unfortunately. And as Sima said, they already paved the ways and the roads in the border near Rafah.
Wow.
And if you see the pictures, now we will put the pictures, you'll see that like they did a very wide road. It means that they want to use it. There is a purpose for this road. It's not a military road. It's like a civilian road. And that means they might be planning to move some Israelis there or new settlements there. And the same applies to the north, near Jabalia, because recently we saw many operations in Jabalia, and Sima talked about the recent one, and they want Jabalia empty, so they want to take it, because most of the threats that came into Israel from Hamas was from the north, because we know Hamas, they have like, most of the rockets are like short range, and if you want to target Ashkelon or the surrounding areas, usually they were fired from northern Gaza, so they want to take this. And now their plan is to take like 5 kilometers to 10 kilometers from southern Lebanon, and nobody is stopping them. You have Hamas, which is like which is like a movement inside the smallest land in Palestine, which is Gaza, is fighting Israel. And we have Lebanon. Hezbollah is part of Lebanon, and their stronghold is in the south, and Lebanon is already very small. And we see these two parties or two movements fighting Israel, which is backed by the West and by the Arab countries. Now it's officially, it's backed by Egypt, it's backed by Jordan. Yesterday, Jordan downed drones that were fired from Iraq, and they were going to Israel. And there's videos of them downing these drones, although, of course, they will not down any missile or drone that is being launched from Israel. And yesterday also the Israelis released a statement. They said if I'm not mistaken, an Israeli airplane went to Jordan and then to Syria and downed a drone that was coming also from Iraq. So currently, for the resistance, I think this is the hardest times ever. The past 2 weeks was the hardest since 1967, I think. This is the hardest. And there's no other choice just to wait and to have faith. Because currently, if Israel continues like this, unfortunately, and I see myself, I'm being realistic, I don't see why they won't take northern Gaza. I don't see why they will bomb all of Dahi or anything that belongs to Hezbollah, or not only Hezbollah, everybody who has empathy to Hezbollah, they are targeting him. Even if you have a store, if you have some connections, you will be targeted. So currently, it's the most difficult times for the resistance, and we'll see what will happen. Maybe Yemen will do something, Iran will do something, but of course, anybody who talks about the West is delusional. The West is there to support Israel and to keep Israel safe and to maintain Israel, because not unfortunately, but because this is the truth. And if you go back to history, and I will not name it as it is, just people will understand, nobody wants them. Europeans don't want them to come back. And even Americans don't want them to come back. There's a history behind them, and they put them here for this. And unfortunately, the Arabs are the weakest link currently in the world. Previously, there was some countries, but nowadays, we are the weakest link. And of course, because our leaders are also backed by the Israelis and the Americans. So I don't have any hope with the Arab community and with the international community, because when we talk about international community, we talk about the United States. Some people still they have hope that Russia might be powerful enough to stand against this stuff, or China. But currently, both countries, they only want to maintain their borders and to maintain their economy. They don't care about any what's happening in the world, or they won't pay a price for what's happening in the world, even if they care. So now the international community equals the United States, and you can say Europe, although I see Europe is very weak, but historically and in our background thoughts, we think Europe is very strong. But now United States is the strongest, and whatever the United States does, they will follow, as we saw in Ukraine. Ukraine is on their borders, and there's a big chance of missiles start hitting Europe. And still, they followed everything that the United States said. And of course, they follow anything that the United States and Israel say.
No, I just wanted to say one thing before we eventually segue into Lebanon, which is important in relation to Gaza and what is happening and Lebanon. There's this parallel of now that Yahya Sinwar is gone, there's this people are being misled by the media, this idea that now that Yahya Sinwar is gone, we can reach a deal, we can pressure them, when the reality is it's not up for debate. Netanyahu doesn't want to end the war. So any talk about, oh, now is the opportunity, we have some elements, Israeli elements, saying now we have to seize the opportunity of this victory. Now, the power vacuum that the martyr Yahya Sinwar left behind can't be denied, but the idea is to think that this will return any prisoners, or that this will make it easier to stop the fighting, or that fighters will surrender. There's a parallel between Gaza and Lebanon, because they tried the same thing after the assassination of Sayyid Hassan Nasrallah. And then they tried to create this picture that fighters are surrendering on the border because Nasrallah was assassinated. And so you have this parallel between Yahya Sinwar, who went out like a legend, and the entire world can see that and agree to that. And we saw how that footage backfired on the Israelis, and showed that he was fighting with his people, laid down his entire life on the line for his people. Now, and with Sayyid Hassan Nasrallah, it's similar. So this idea that now there's some opportunity, that's fake, because he doesn't want to end the war anyway. Netanyahu didn't want to end the war after assassinating Sayyid Hassan Nasrallah, and he doesn't want to end the war after assassinating Yahya Sinwar. So that's I'm seeing that in Lebanon and Gaza, this idea that try to break the people, and then even portraying it as if anything that's happening is happening because people have now lost their faith or have given up, whether it's fighters or civilians.
Yeah, in Lebanon it's more clear because in Lebanon we have multiple parties, and we have many TV channels, unlike Gaza. So now, after what happened, many TV channels and politicians are pushing for a new president. We haven't had a president since more than 2 years. Now they are pushing for it. Now they are pushing to withdraw. They are asking Hezbollah to withdraw his weapons in this times. And of course, they are talking about new UN resolutions. So now they are paving way for politics, because they want to take in politics what they couldn't take in fighting on the ground. And they think, or they don't think currently that is in its weakest time, as I said, and they know that, and they are not smarter than me. They eventually know that, and they are trying to pressure all the parties in Lebanon and Palestine to make a deal and to weaken Hezbollah more and Hamas more, or to portray in the background, in the thoughts of the population, that in short time there will be no Hamas. We have to accept a new ruler in Gaza, and in Lebanon, Hezbollah won't be an armed militia anymore, and you have to accept this, and Hezbollah must accept this, and you have to elect a new president who's ready to make a deal with Israel, and you have to elect a new prime minister who's backed by Saudi Arabia. They want to return us to square one, and that's what they are trying to do. And it's so obvious. I'm not analyzing anything. It's so obvious. They say it on the TVs, and it's very clear. We don't want Hezbollah. We don't want the weapons, and we want a new president who can make peace. Peace equals a peace treaty with Israel.
So, Karim, to your point, to what you're describing right now, Axios, Barak Rabin, Mossad agent Barak Rabin, came out with this report earlier today talking about how Israel gave a ceasefire proposal to the White House for Lebanon. And just like in Gaza, the ceasefire proposal, in quotes, Israel is demanding to be permitted to carry out active enforcement inside Lebanese territory, i.e. ground operations, and also to have freedom of operation in Lebanese airspace. These are the demands that Israel is presenting to the United States for a ceasefire, right? Remember the demands that still stand for the Gaza ceasefire, which are no ceasefire, a return to fighting, just like return the captives, and we'll continue to massacre your people and disarm the resistance, and et cetera, not allow humanitarian aid in. Is the same idea. They're applying it to Lebanon. And today, the U.S. Special Envoy for the region, Amos Hochstein, is, as we're speaking, he's in Beirut. He met with officials. He talked about Resolution 1701, which was the UN Security Council resolution that essentially put an end to the 2006 war. He talks about that it must be implemented. Again, same thing as they always say. But then he also says, adhering to Resolution 1701 by both sides is not enough. So what is enough, right? And I think it's exactly what you're saying, Karim. The disarmament of Hezbollah, I guess the killing of all of their members and all of their leaders and all of their supporters, and all of their anyone who might ever, given a like to a Hezbollah operation on Twitter. There's no political way out of this, right? But then, is there a military way out of this? Because in the south, the losses for the Israeli army, they continue to mount. As we said, this article in the Hebrew media about the growing refusal to return, it's as much about Lebanon as it is about Gaza. Because just like in Gaza, not more actually, Israel has been able to hurt Lebanon from the air. Like they can hurt anywhere from the air. But on the ground, their gains have been minimal to say the least, honestly. And now what they're doing is they are targeting a Hezbollah-affiliated financial institution, right? That is Card al-Hassan Association overnight on Sunday. Very, very heavy night of airstrikes across the entirety of Lebanon, the southern suburbs. Horrific images of a building getting demolished just a few meters away from the airport, from the runway. The Bekaa Valley is being decimated. The south is already being, destroyed. Now it appears that what Israel is doing in Lebanon is similar to what they did in Gaza. It's the same approach. Like when they said, we're going to do to Lebanon what we did in Gaza, they weren't lying. They say, now we're going for the financial institutions that finance terrorism, right? But what is Card al-Hassan in reality?
Well, you have U.S. and Israel supporters on Twitter sharing photos and videos of the airstrike saying, look, this is Hezbollah's money up in smoke. These are not Hezbollah banks. That's what Zionists are saying. They're acting like this is how Hezbollah gets all its money and support from Iran. These are actually non-profit, interest-free credit unions. And Cradle al-Hassan provides loans for people where they can deposit their money without interest. So these institutions are critical in Lebanon, and it's not just directly Hezbollah's community that uses these. There are Shias, Sunnis, and Christians who use Cradle al-Hassan, and especially also in times where we know in 2019 Lebanon was very affected by the financial crisis onwards. So this is like an anti-capitalist kind of non-predatory system, and it's crucial. So this idea that now we're targeting all of Hezbollah's assets, and as if this is about Hezbollah, the terror organization, is completely false. We know they're targeting the environment and the people of Lebanon, and not just Hezbollah's community or popular incubator, but all kinds of people. And so Wall Street Journal yesterday, they were like, yeah, the goal behind this is to reduce the trust between Hezbollah and its community. As if that worked. I mean, they targeted many branches of Cradle al-Hassan in 2006, and there was no trust reduced there. So, I mean, really, Karim was telling me yesterday, it just seems like they've run out of targets, and they need to produce targets for their target bank. I mean, that's true, but also if they hit it in 2006, why wouldn't they hit its branches today?
I think something that we should mention just very quickly is where do you find the Card al-Hassan, the buildings, the institutions, the branches that they're bombing, right? Where do you find them?
So yesterday, the Israeli army declared that they will bomb 24 buildings, and these buildings have stores for Card al-Hassan. Card al-Hassan, as Sima explained, and I want to add one thing, that in Islam, interest is forbidden. So this is like an alternative for international banks. Because in Islam, if you put or give or take money, you're not allowed to take interest from the guy who gave money. So to make that picture bigger, of course, banks lend you money and they take interest. But in Islam, this is forbidden. So that's why, hence, Card al-Hassan was created. And of course, we know that Hezbollah is an Islamic resistance. So what happened yesterday, that most of the buildings, if not all the buildings, or all the buildings that were bombed, they were completely destroyed. Only in Bekaa, there's 3 buildings that were targeted by UAVs. That's why they were not destroyed. They only targeted the shops. And as you said, they are shops. It's not a building, as people imagine, that's a building for Card al-Hassan. It's like a residential building, 12-story building, 13-story building. And you have, in Lebanon, 5-6 shops. You might find like a place who sells like T-shirts, a place who sell candies, and next to him you will find a branch for Cardinal Hassan just to put money. So they destroyed all these buildings. There were 24 buildings. And as Asima said yesterday, we had a chat. I told her, for instance, on the ground, they are not advancing. They can't do anything. And they already assassinated the head of Hezbollah, and they destroyed the stronghold of Hezbollah, which is Rhetoric and Dahi. And they destroyed all the facilities in Bekaa and in the south. So what they can do, how can they pressure Hezbollah? Now they can't pressure Hezbollah. They already assassinated all the leaders. They already destroyed all the facilities. So now they are searching for the new civilian targets to pressure Hezbollah, because on the ground, now they realized 100%, and even right-wing Israelis realized that they can't advance in south of Lebanon. And if they advance, they are advancing in low areas, in villages that are very low. But when they approach any mountain or any hill, they are being targeted. Yani we saw what's happening. And the maximum they could do is to advance 2 kilometers, bomb a building, and then they retreat. And yesterday was the first time ever they tried to occupy a building in the south, and it was a school. It's a school, of course. They are Israelis. It's a school, let's occupy it. So they went into a school, and the moment they entered the school, Hezbollah targeted the building with missiles and with rockets. So this was their one and only attempt till now. So of course I don't know, maybe they will start to target the Hezbollah politicians. They will start to target maybe even Hezbollah media or anybody affiliated with Hezbollah, because they don't have the banks. The target bank is nearly done in Lebanon, and it only took them 2 weeks, which is, I think, is a strategic mistake from Israel, because now they don't have anything to do unless they want to start to target more civilians and more civilians. But they assassinated everybody. They destroyed the facilities. They destroyed the stronghold in Rhetoric. And of course, the south is, I didn't hope to say it, but I will say it. The south turned out to be a new Gaza now. So we'll see what will happen.
Karim, you keep using the enemy terminology of stronghold, but I get what you mean.
It is a stronghold, Sima. I've been there. Everybody been there. And of course, just people to know, Hatahi is not like the suburbs of like Rio de Janeiro, or even like we don't see homeless people as you see in New York. Dahi was like a very strong hub for technology in Lebanon, for all Lebanon. If you want to buy PCs, computers, headphones, anything, you have like a damaged PC, you want to create a new like small drone, you want to, whatever you want to buy, anything, people used to go to Dahi. And even if you want to like
and even medicine, like doctors and everything,
medicine, well, of course, and many delicious food was there. And if you want to fix your car, and there were many things in Dahi. Dahi was not like a poor place where homeless people live, like in New York or whatever in Los Angeles. Dahi was like a very important place, not only in Beirut, also for Lebanon. And if you want to open a new shop, usually people go to Dahi. They take like big amounts from there and open shops in the south and the north. So the damage is really huge, and nobody expected this damage. Unfortunately, we expected more from Hezbollah. I didn't think that this will happen. I think that Hezbollah will retaliate stronger than that and prevent Israel to accomplish what it has accomplished. But unfortunately, this didn't happen. And now, as I said again and again, unfortunately, but it's the truth, we are in the weakest point that we ever reached in Lebanon since the 90s, I can say, or at least since the 2000s. And we'll see what will happen. Currently, Hezbollah started to target northern Israel more and more. And many people that are saying that Hezbollah is recovering, but the damage has been done. And we'll see what the days will tell us.
Yeah, I just quickly wanted to bring something up. There's a reminder that this is asymmetric warfare. I don't disagree with Karim, but I think it's up for debate. where me and Karim disagree is that I say that they would have inflicted this destruction either way. So when I think about this argument of Hezbollah should have hit stronger to establish deterrence earlier on, I see that perspective, but I also think that since there's a plan set in place to get rid of Hamas and get rid of Hezbollah, weaken it, and then erase it, I think that no matter what course of action Hezbollah would have taken, we would have reached this level of destruction. Now, Karim disagrees with me, and I understand why, but that's where my brain is at. And also, and he's saying we're in a weak spot, but the reality of the situation and of asymmetric warfare is that resistance forces in this region, their goal is to thwart the goals of the enemy and to continue on surviving. So if the resistance movements in the region survive this war, they have won. That is my opinion. Now, it's controversial. People may say, well, then you're just going like, one step forward and 2 steps back. That's how it is. Thwarting plans through defense and making sure that you survive. I mean, for me, that's how I see it. And we have no doubt that Israel will fail in eradicating Hezbollah and even Hamas. So,
but it's what matters to understand here, really, and I feel like most of our viewers do already, is that the Lebanese resistance or the Palestinian resistance or any of the resistance factions in the region, they're not fighting against Israel alone. They're fighting against the combined power of the West. They're fighting against history's largest empire, most powerful empire in military terms, in economic terms, in information, in
everything,
in the media manipulation. Like it's to call it an uneven playing field. It's it's a disservice. No, it's a disservice to the reality. It's not actually what it is. This is a David versus Goliath, multiplied by 1,000, by 10,000. So it is exactly what you're saying, Sima, that it's very unlikely, when we talk about the crisis in the Israeli army or the economic crisis or the fact that you have, Israelis leaving maybe more than they were before, or, are the Israelis not coming as much or doing aliyah as they often do. That doesn't mean that the moment this slows down, that Israel's not going to get, all of the money in the world to rebuild and to reconstitute itself. Because we know already that the US and Germany and the UK in particular, these three, they don't give, they don't give a shit about the ICJ or about the International Criminal Court or about any of these, international law. As what I brought up earlier, Matthew Miller saying Israel has a right to target civilians. This is them saying the quiet part out loud because they no longer need to keep quiet anymore because it's apparent, it's transparent, and they are saying it as it is. You had a Kamala Harris, the leftist U.S. Presidential candidate, when asked about Gaza a couple of days ago, the first thing she says is she talks about the mass rape false story about Hamas. Like many women were raped that day. There's no evidence about that. The Israeli military hasn't allowed international organizations from the UN to others to ever review any of these so-called evidence. So nobody has actually come out and said this happened, and here's the evidence. It's just tall tales. It's just, like Yahya Sinwar puts babies in microwaves, or they beheaded 40 babies, or like all of this stuff that at this point is becoming, for them, for the West, reality, and they're fighting for it, right? And now you have Hezbollah, which is, the largest non-state military actor in the world, fighting a war against the entirety of the West. And the same, with Hamas, and the same with Yemen and Ansar Allah. Ansar Allah officials are talking about that there might be plans for a U.S. invasion of Hodeida, which would be so stupid, in all honesty, and that would just spark a war with Saudi Arabia. But I feel like at this point, all cards are on the table. For the West, absolutely all cards are on the table. And when they come and they say, we are telling Israel not to hit Iran's oil fields or not to hit their nuclear reactors, this is just for the headlines, right? Because whatever Israel does, they're going to continue to enjoy the support.
Yeah, no, I mean, for anyone in the region, nobody in the region can pretend that they know what is going to happen and where this war is going. Doesn't matter how much experience they have, how much of an expert they are, nobody can say where this is going. And when we're talking about this realistically, it's not to say that it's all over. But you have to keep your feet on the ground in what is happening. We have faith in the regional resistance, but the situation is extremely difficult, and we don't know what developments could happen. We're not saying this is the limit of what Hezbollah can do, nor are we saying that this is the limit of what Israel can do, even though it appears to us that Israel has burnt all its cards and is searching for new targets. It's true, but we still haven't seen regionally what bigger assassinations may bring. You don't know if Hezbollah will target Karish gas field. There are many developments that could happen, but no one can pretend that they know where this is going. Because a lot of people at the beginning of the war didn't know that we were going to a wider war, and that war would be waged on Lebanon. And nobody thought that once again the goal would be to get rid of Hezbollah, essentially as it was in 2006. Nobody expected that. So really, there's no you can't predict. And that's the truth. You can't predict when the solution will come, but as we've said, it's
or how it's going to look like.
Or what it looks like, but it's all on the battlefield. 1701 is a joke. Those conditions you mentioned by Barak Rabin, I mean, that's what's the 1701 in that? There's no it's the opposite of 1701.
Exactly.
So none of that makes I don't even think people should be reporting on that, but that's just me, It's all what's happening on the ground now in Gaza and in Lebanon. And as you said, it's the whole world against Hezbollah and Hamas, essentially, right now.
Well, I think Israel is so predictive, and the United States is so predictive. I think the problem is from the axis of resistance. They played it soft till the last 2 weeks, or to the beginning of this month. They played it soft. To be honest, I don't consider myself a genius, but I saw what's happening. I saw it before, and at least I knew what the Israel is gonna do. At least like 1 week or 2 weeks prior from any assassination. I knew this will happen, but I don't know why the Axis didn't see it or didn't act or didn't take actions. They are still playing it soft, as if what's happening in Lebanon is not a war, as if it's like still an operation. Iran is acting like this. The Iraqis are acting like this. And even the Hezbollah is acting like this. They are still threatening. There's a big war waged on Lebanon, and they are still threatening, and maybe they can accomplish what they are threatening, but I don't know. I want anybody from that to explain for me, what do they mean by a war? What is war?
Right.
Gaza is war. What's happening in Lebanon is war. And if they continue like this, they will continue to Syria. That's my not prediction. I'm not like predicting anything. I'm just saying what they will do, because Israel is very easy for one who reads their news to know what they might do. They will take north of Gaza. They will take a couple hundred meters south of Gaza. They will enter more of Julan. They will weaken furthermore Syria, because Syria should be punished, because all the missiles that Hezbollah have, they pass through Syria. Syria is next. They will try, but they will not succeed to take 5 kilometers south of Lebanon. And after that, or during this time, the United States will stop, and nobody cares who will be the next president. I will talk about this after I finish my 2 points. The United States will try to bomb any resistance in Iraq, and they will try politically and with firepower, because we know Iraq is controlled by the United States since 2003, and you have the head of intelligence or whatever, any like high-ranked official is appointed by the United States or is okayed by the United States, so they can use these cards. And afterwards, the last but not least is Yemen. Yemen also proved themselves against the United States and against Saudi Arabia. But we don't know. It's finished, and there's only Yemen, Saudi Arabia, Kuwait, Bahrain, UAE, and the United States and Britain. And occasionally Israel will start to bomb Yemen, and then the Axis will be destroyed. I'm saying this because the Axis should know that what's happening. Because unfortunately, the past year, I saw that they didn't realize what's happening. So I'm saying that. So please see what's happening. And the point that I want to go back to is Biden and Kamala Harris. Biden, Kamala Harris, and Trump. On the other hand, I just want to say, if Kamala Harris was elected, nothing will change. Zero will change because Biden, we know, is not like functioning properly, and the deep state is taking all the decisions. And Kamala Harris, if you like her or not or whatever, Kamala Harris has zero knowledge in politics, let alone international politics, let alone the Middle East. For her, the Middle East is like algebra for a chimpanzee. She will never understand it. So the system that the United States has taken in this war will continue. But if Trump was elected, what I can see is that the United States will do joint operation with Israel. Currently, they are like under the table. Currently, they are only providing weapons. But if Trump was elected, he will bomb Syria. He will bomb Yemen. He will bomb Iraq. Not as we are saying now. He will bomb them with like the most powerful weapons we have ever seen. So if Trump was elected, escalation, at least times two what's happening, what we are saying. If Kamala Harris was appointed, the war will continue as it is. And Netanyahu already knew this because he met them both, and both okayed him to do whatever he wants. And he met them before the major assassinations, which is, for me, he assassinated the most important person ever walked the earth in the last 100 years at least, which is Sayyid Hassan Nasrallah. And the most important fighter, not a leader, I would like to name him a fighter, which is Yahya Sinwar. He was the most important fighter
and brave
in Palestine since Qassam, the Syrian. This is the fighter who came from Syria to fight the Brits and the Jews or the Zionists in Palestine. So we'll see what will happen. Only times will tell us.
I trust in Hezbollah's strategy on a local level still, despite all the blows it's been taken. And your view is a legitimate view that may have been done to, should have been done to establish resistance. And the reason that, like you're saying, the axis of resistance miscalculated because it's been trying to avoid a wider war this whole time. And so even when wider war is being waged on it, it's still trying to avoid a wider war. And so we don't understand that patience. And so although I may disagree with you on some points, I understand where you're coming from.
But what does it mean, a wider war?
I don't know.
Have no idea.
At this point, at this point, it feels like it's as wide as it can be, especially because if Iran enters the fray, I guess completely, Iran cannot send any ground forces, right? Iran, they will need to go to them to fight on the ground.
There's no need
it's
for
going to be like
forces.
missiles against missiles. Same for Yemen. Yemen, what are they going to do? Are they going to storm Saudi Arabia, the south of Saudi Arabia? It's at this point, it does feel like, especially because Syria has already been on fire for what now, like 15 years, something like that, or 13 years. So it's an ever-changing situation, I guess, is what we're trying to.
And anything could turn the tables. Anything could turn things around. We saw that in 2006. Anything can turn things around. I mean, it's not. Again, we're not saying we know what's going to happen, but yeah, we do question what is the red line, or what is a wider war to them, or how can this idea of strategic patience, or I personally don't think I understand more than anyone else. I can't understand why certain decisions were taken, but I am convinced 100% that Hezbollah will come out of this victorious, and that's me. So the axis overall, I mean,
they can't cancel.
You cannot, with weapons, you cannot destroy resistance. History has taught us that. If they want to destroy resistance, if they want to destroy the memory of Yahya Sinwar and Hassan Nasrallah, give an alternative. Go on the battlefield of ideas. There you may have a chance someday. But on the battlefield, with weapons, with guns, you're only going to create more resistance. We're seeing it in Gaza. We see it, the living embodiment of this, the Palestinians that continue to fight. We're going to continue to see it in Lebanon. We're going to continue to see it wherever it is they decide to wage war next. But with that, I think we can wrap up for this week. Before we go, I want to let you know that we are going to be holding an extra discussion on the leaked documents about Israel's alleged plans for the retaliation against Iran, and also the attack on Netanyahu's home that was launched over the weekend. So make sure to go to our Patreon to check that out and to become a subscriber to support us and the work we do here at the Cradle, especially at this time in which we really do need your support. Make sure to leave a like, to share, to subscribe, to follow us on X and on Telegram. And for the Cradle News Roundup, my name is Esteban Carrillo. I have been joined by Sima Itaim and Karim Shami.